Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome back to Payari Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ki Payari Batain from the platform of Geo Islam. So before the break on Payari Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ki Payari Batain, we were talking about, first of all, we covered on the biography of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and how he was such an important Sahabi, and how he was not just an average Sahabi. He was one of the scholars in that time, like Abu Dharr al-Ghifari and others. So, and then we talked about how this hadith is very short, like La Darara wa La Dirar, but how this has a big message, not to harm our brothers, not to harm our Muslim brothers. And then we took a lot of hadiths and we examined them and we discussed them, and then we seen that this was also emphasized in other places, which we've also learned before, we have also read before, and also in other places. So now we got the lesson from that hadith, that hadith is mostly about not harming and not to reciprocate that harm, not to repeat that harm. Now, let's go ahead, which is the next hadith. This is narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لو يؤتى الناس بدعواهم لادعى رجال أموال قوم ودماءهم، لكن البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. حديث حسن رواه البيهقي وغيره هكذا وبعضه في الصحيحين. Now, this hadith is very important. This is about, the law, Islamic law. But this, here's a disclaimer. This won't make you a PhD in Islamic law. This doesn't make it, okay? But this gives you at least the basic plot about Islamic law, okay? This gives us the basic plot. But now let's go ahead. It narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم, if people were given the right to claim everything, then they would claim somebody else's, the men will, somebody, this is actually a shape, it's a shakal, but this is not actually using for men, it is actually the majority that men are there. It is also used for women also. It is just like for the majority. Then people would take and claim the wealth, the blood and money of other people, although the clear proof is upon the plaintiff and the defendant. Now, this is again about the plaintiff and the defendant. This is the excellent hadith with Bayhaqi related. That's not so impressive, but it has also been related in the Sahihain. Yes, it is written by Bayhaqi, not in the six, but it has some parts of it, not the whole hadith, but the parts of it, some parts of it, like لو يؤتى الناس بدعواهم, or for example لادعى رجال أموال قوم, like this, some parts in the Sahihain, like it is in some way you can say mutafakun alayh. So it is, mentioned in the Sahihain, which is in Bukhari and Muslim. Now, this is telling about Islamic law, and I think I'm very excited to cover this. But first of all, let's go on to the biography of the narrator. First of all, we have already talked about Abdullah ibn Abbas in hadith number 17, where there's been like احفظ الله يحفظ احفظ الله تجده تجاهك إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله واعلم أن الأمة لو اجتمعت, okay, it goes so on. But to give a short detail and briefly, that Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was the son of Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was, one of the very great Sahabi, one of the scholarly Sahabis at that time. Now, let's go ahead. What is this? لو يؤتى الناس بدعواهم. لو يؤتى الناس بدعواهم. If people are given their claims. Now what is this? If people are given their claims. Now, claiming is, I think, one of the most biggest things which we can, do and nick anything around. We can nick anything around, like land. And there's nobody who is saying, that's mine. No, you can't say that. Claiming, it's claiming. Okay, claim is, we can give a claim and we can take anything, even if it's not rightfully ours. That's why we are not given our claims. If you given that somebody is nicking this, somebody is nicking this, somebody is stealing this, somebody is stealing this, so this is not balanced. Claiming steals the balance. That's why it is said, لَوْ يُعْتَى النَّاسُ بِدَعْوَاهُم. If people were given their claims, they will claim somebody else's things. They will claim like, hey, this is mine. They will claim, hey, this is mine. So this is just will not work out. This will not work out. This is not rightful. You will claim somebody's rightful property. It's not rightful. That's why. Not to claim. Again, if people were given their claims, they would claim somebody else's blood, they would claim somebody else's money, they would claim somebody else's anything. They will claim their property. They will claim their property, they will claim their things. لَادَّعَى رِجَالٌ أَمْوَالَ قَوْمٍ وَدِمَاءَهُمْ لكن البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. Now, this is telling the concept of the plaintiff and the defendant. Now, what is the plaintiff and what is the defendant? This will go into very deep keys, and I am very excited to talk about this. First of all, let's say it's an example that somebody stole somebody's car keys, okay? Somebody stole somebody's car keys while we can say he was going somewhere, or yes, he was going to pray Salat al-Maghrib, and he left his car keys outside. And then when he came outside, his car keys were gone. Okay, that's one very simple example. And that gives us that, yes, car keys, and it's gone. And now somebody's telling that my car keys have been stolen while I was praying Namaz. Outside, somebody stole it. Now, the one who stole it, he's the plaintiff. And the one who is defending himself, he's the defendant. He's defending himself. He's saying some words to defend himself. Now, this is a short example of the plaintiff and the defendant. The plaintiff and the defendant. And over here, this will open into many gates and keys, and about how they claim, and again, this makes a bit sense. If you can connect 2 into 2, you can make some sense about this, about how, about claims, about the defendant and the plaintiff. Now, this is coming in every sheet. The defendant and the plaintiff, and this goes into many laws about a crime and the witnesses and many things. It goes on, many things. Now, over here, let's go on. If there's a crime, now what is the main key of evidence? Okay, at that day and age, there was no surveillance or fingerprints or DNA testing or that and that. That's why there was different types of evidence used over there. At that time, there was different types of evidence used. But now in our day and age, since these evidences will come DNA testing and has come like surveillance, so this can now many of the fuqaha, the Jews, they differentiate upon that should we use those which were happening in olden days at that time when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ lived around, or should we use the other ones and also take them in the primary one? Wallahu a'lam. Some say that it's secondary, some say that it is primary. So that is a matter which has been very debatable. Now that we have talked about the plaintiff and the defendant, like how the plaintiff is somebody who keeps silent and is not charged with anything, and who is claiming really opposite to the apparent thing, while the defendant is claiming to the apparent thing. Now, let's go ahead with the witnesses, the criteria of witnesses, which Islam emphasizes a lot. Now, Islam, it tells about the criteria of witnesses. First of all, the witness needs to have sound memory. And then after that, the witness, he needs to have honesty. He should be honest. The witness also should have good character. He should also be a good character person, a good-tempered person, a noble person. And then at last, he needs to be an adult mostly. At least somebody who can differentiate between right and wrong. Now that we have talked about the criteria of witnesses, we can overall differentiate something. In this hadith, we have mostly learnt about what is a plaintiff and who is a defendant. Who is a plaintiff and who is the defendant. And again, about the criteria of witnesses and how it has been emphasized in Islam, and Islam tells about the criteria of witnesses. So that's overall which we have mostly learnt in this hadith. So dear viewers, we have today done two hadith, which is hadith number 32 and hadith number 33. In the first half, in hadith number 32, we talked about how not to do harm and not to reciprocate harm, not to harm our Muslim brothers. And the next one was about the plaintiff and the defendant. The plaintiff and the defendant, the criteria, witnesses, and many other aspects, and many other aspects. So, dear viewers, this is all for today, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the knowledge to act, to interpret this, to have the knowledge of this and to act on this. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us, that He blesses us Jannat al-Firdaus, He blesses us Jannah, He makes us from as-sabiqoon, as it said in Surah Al-Waqiyah, was-sabiqoon as-sabiqoon, ulaika al-muqarrabun, they are the most near. Now, رَبَّنَا أَتْمِمْ لَنَا نُورًا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.